Good morning, readers. Well, today is February 19th, and we finally have had a break in the weather here, so things are melting and it seems more spring-like outside, despite what some of the rest of you in Texas and Mexico and other places across the continent have had this week. So I'm happy with our weather here, and I have a new release for you. So today, She Was at Risk, which is book number 10 in the Zachary Goldman Mysteries series, is now out. And on my blog post, then as usual, I have gathered together a number of other new releases as well. So you can take a hop over to my blog, pick up She Was at Risk, and see what other books are there that you would like. And I am going to do a reading for you from She Was at Risk today. A little bit scratchy. Hopefully my voice will hold out. We'll see how far I get into it before it gives out here. All right. Zachary gazed out Kenzie's living room window at the pleasant suburban view. He hadn't realized how much he was missing by living in apartment buildings instead of a nice little house like Kenzie had. When he stared out the window at his apartment, he saw nothing but sky, or looked down at the dirty parking lot, complete with homeless people going through the trash for bottles. He didn't know his neighbors within the apartment building well. They were familiar enough to nod to in the elevator, but that was about it. What he was missing was the green lawns, the children walking to school, the flower borders and gardens, people smiling pleasantly at each other when they passed on the street, or even stopping to talk to each other. It was a postcard picture day, and unlike when he looked at the Vermont trees and hills covered with snow as Christmas approached, Zachary could enjoy the scene. Maybe he should have moved into a house like Kenzie's. Maybe sometime in the future he would. Maybe, with the way his relationship was progressing with Kenzie, he pulled his thoughts away from this possibility. He didn't want to be dependent on anyone's kindness. He'd lived with Mario after his previous apartment had burned down, and it was better to be on his own 2 feet. He got lazy relying on someone else to do the work and to keep him on track. The thought stirred Zachary, and he got up and went to the kitchen. He put in a pot and made himself a cup of coffee, and poked his head out of the kitchen for a moment to listen and try to decide whether Kenzie was up yet. He couldn't hear her stirring. No point in making her coffee before she was up. It would just be cold by the time she got to it. But while he was in the kitchen, he rinsed the dishes that were sitting in the sink, put them into the dishwasher, and wiped the counter, eliminating the rings from his previous cups of coffee. He put the washcloth back in its place and gave himself a mental pat on the back for at least doing something to help keep Kenzie's place tidy. Fresh coffee in hand, Zachary returned to his place in Kenzie's living room. Since he was there most weeknights now, he'd asked Kenzie whether she minded his getting a mobile laptop table that he could use while he was sitting on the couch or in the easy chair, if he kept his space tidy and it didn't detract from the decor of the room. Kenzie shook her head, bemused. Sure, of course. You should have some kind of desk instead of sitting hunched over that thing all the time. It's not good for your body. He was often sore after a couple of hours sitting with it, so he knew she was right. I just didn't want to presume. Kenzie shrugged. Of course, you're here. I like having you around, having a few touches that remind me of you when you're out. I don't mind at all. So he'd browsed online until he found one that he liked, and it had been a good purchase. He could sit and type, read documents, or browse databases with better posture, which helped keep him going for as long as he needed to. Zachary's phone vibrated in his pocket. He slid it out to look at it and felt frown lines crease his forehead. Gordon Drake. Gordon didn't have any reason to be calling Zachary. Zachary had stayed away from Bridget, his ex-wife. He hadn't been following her or spying on her. They hadn't accidentally run into each other anywhere. Not lately. Zachary had cleared everything up at Drake Chase Gould after Ashley's death. There was no reason for Gordon to call Zachary back. With the killer behind bars, there shouldn't have been anything else for Gordon to call Zachary about. Unless there'd been another death. Unless something else untoward had happened. But even if it had, Zachary would have expected Gordon to go somewhere else to get help. Bridget had not been happy with Zachary looking into Ashley's death, and Zachary didn't think that Gordon would do anything he knew would antagonize her. especially not since she was pregnant. Zachary slid his finger across the phone screen to answer the call. Gordon, is everything okay? Zachary, it's been a while since I saw you last. How are things with you? Zachary chewed the inside of his cheek. I'm fine, he said cautiously. What's going on with you? Everything okay at Chase Gold? Gordon chuckled. The nickname for the investment banking firm left out his name, which was a bit of a slap in the face, considering he was the principal partner and owner. But he appreciated the appropriateness of the name. Yes, everything is fine at Chase Gold, he agreed. Better than ever. And I have put some extra controls in place as far as the interns are concerned. We don't want any more hospitalizations. Yeah, that's good. Zachary waited for Gordon to explain why he had called. It wasn't just for a casual chat or to catch up on each other's lives. They didn't have that kind of relationship. Although Gordon had always been very cordial towards Zachary, he knew how much animosity Bridget had toward him. He usually respected her desire to have nothing to do with him anymore, unless he needed something. I guess you're wondering why I called. I was hoping that the two of us could get together. I suppose, Zachary said slowly, feeling his way along. What did you want to meet about? I would prefer to leave that for our meeting. It's a rather delicate matter. I prefer to discuss it face to face, somewhere quiet and discreet. Okay, if you're sure. Where would you like to meet? Your office? Heavens, no. Gordon was silent for a moment, as if considering, though surely he must have known before he called Zachary that he would need an appropriate place to meet. I can book a private meeting room at my club. Do you know the Ostrich? Zachary knew of it. He wasn't a member and had never been there. He wasn't aware of anyone in his circles who was a member, other than Gordon, clearly. I know where it is. What's the dress code? They're fairly relaxed now. No blue jeans or track pants. Clean, neat and pressed. Collared shirt. No tie required. Zachary didn't think he even owned a tie. When was the last time he'd attended an event where he had needed one? Probably not since he and Bridget had broken up. He had gone to fancy dress parties with her. Lots of places that had required a tie or even a tux with a bow tie, not the clip-on ones. They had to be proper tie-up bow ties, Bridget informed him. No shortcuts. People could tell when they looked at you whether you had taken the time or not. They could see right through you. If that were the case, then he didn't know what point there was in wearing a bow tie of any kind. If people could see through his clothing to what kind of person he really was, then why try to masquerade as a society man by wearing clothes that didn't suit him? But he didn't say that to Bridget. He had shaved and dressed up and stood still while Bridget tied his bow tie and made sure it was straight and everything else was in its proper place. But he could manage business pants and a polo shirt. He didn't have to go out and rent or buy anything for that. Gordon would be in a three-piece suit if he were coming from work, but he'd not told Zachary that he had to be formally dressed. He would probably just stand out more if he tried to look like an upper-class businessman anyway. People paid no attention if he looked like he was working class or a bum. Okay, what time do you want to get together? I have a rather full schedule, Gordon said, a note of apology in his voice. But I'd like to see you as soon as possible. Could you do lunch today? I just had someone cancel on me. Lunch at Gordon's fancy club. Sure, lunch at the Ostrich Club. Do I check in with the maitre d' when I get there? I haven't been anywhere like that before. There's a reception desk. You can tell Danielle that you're meeting me. She'll direct you to which room I have booked, or someone will escort you up. Zachary nodded to himself. He looked at the system clock on his computer. He'd better start getting cleaned up if he was going to look presentable by lunch. All right, that's as much as I'm going to be able to get in today, but feel free to check out the sample on my website or at any of the online stores that She Was at Risk is on. There's another little teaser for you. And I will post a link to the blog and to the book below. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.